Okay, so not too long ago, I did a video regarding the degradation of release date practices as a function of digital downloads. The idea was that the process of digital downloading and the launch day norm of having massive day one patches was having a negative impact on release quality by offering an extension of development and polish time past the point where it was previously enabled. I stand by that wholeheartedly, but a lot of viewers then began to ask, well, what is a better format then? The process of digitally downloading a game is extremely convenient. Analog and physical methods are, for one, significantly more time consuming. They require you to visit a store, buy a product, and then return to install and or play it. With a digital format, not only can you purchase, download, and play a game without ever leaving your home, but you can have your entire game library backed up to a central account, which is accessible from anywhere you log in. There is undeniable convenience there, but with convenience comes a few very important drawbacks that I think are less considered, and that is the focus of today's video. Let me pitch you a scenario here. In the not so distant past of gaming, you would travel to a store, whichever retailer you prefer, purchase a game, return home, slot the disc, install, and begin playing. After that process was complete, you were able to play whenever you wanted, for however long you wanted, and in essence, you holistically owned the game. Now, there were certain unique drawbacks, admittedly. If you scratched the disc, the game didn't play anymore, so you had to be careful and preserve the physical product that you had bought. But then, that's not really an uncommon thing. You could even play with no internet connection, at least most of the time. Perhaps you would lose access to certain specific games or features, but the majority of even online games had an offline component or version so the players could participate even with no internet connection. Another aspect to this, and arguably the most important one, is buyer protection through legislation that defends consumer rights pertaining to the retail distribution of physical goods. When you bought a physical disc, there were various warranty programs, and the option to seek a refund remained intact within a certain time span or various other regulated parameters. In most countries, there is a section of legal framework called consumer or buyer rights, or something to that end. And I'm no expert on the intricacies of it all, but there are reasonable guidelines in place to protect the interests of the buyer in commercial retail transactions. Considering these two factors, you could buy a game, play the game, seek a refund if it was broken, dysfunctional, or otherwise unacceptable, and if it turned out to be worthy of your money and your time, you could play it whenever you want for as long as you want. Now let's pose a different scenario. In this scenario, you purchase a new age, always online digital download. It's more convenient from the start, sure, because you can sign into the store, buy the game, start the download, and then depending on your connection speed, be loaded up and playing the game in a similar or even much shorter time span than going out and buying a physical disc. But consider these next factors. For the sake of not repeating material, I will gloss over the argument that the game is likely in a much worse launch state because of the online patching capabilities, and if this were in fact the launch window for the game, you may be downloading a 50 gig game and a 60 gig day one patch. But let's focus back on the main topic. You can sign in and play this game, but you don't actually own this game. Hear me out now, because a lot of people are going to have a knee-jerk reaction saying, yes you do, you're wrong. You don't own the game. You own access to the game. Furthermore, you own a complex rerouted access channel which goes through multiple different companies. If you are an Xbox within your Microsoft account, having purchased a game like Anthem or The Division 2, that means you have a Microsoft account accessing Microsoft servers on which your game is housed, then bouncing through a Uplay account where the Division servers are housed to allow you access to play your game. There is also a different route for each game you own from a unique publisher. Your EA account holds the Anthem keys, Activision for Call of Duty, etc., etc. This means that when there is a Microsoft Live downtime, you can't play your game. When there is Uplay downtime, you can't play your game. When there is internet downtime, you can't play your game. There are a ton of different links in the chain, and each one can totally strip away your ability to play the game that you paid for because you don't actually own it. If one of your accounts gets banned for whatever reason, you permanently lose access to all of the games that are further down the chain. You could end up losing your EA account and with it $300 worth of purchases. You could lose your Microsoft account, or for a better example, have it suspended for whatever reason and lose access to even more games. And there are a lot of different accounts in play here. Another angle to consider is the individual game server longevity. Since you have effectively only purchased an access pass, it is entirely possible for a company to reroute resources away from an older game and shut down the servers entirely. Servers aren't free to run. This means that over time, games that we all know and love may actually disappear forever because no one actually owned them. They just owned the ability to get on and play them through a central server. And when that server is gone, the purchase that all those gamers made ceases to exist. For still another angle, consider the one's concrete ability to seek a refund. It has now become common for companies to set up a complex click-through agreement which forces users to sign away their right to seek a refund for the download as soon as they actually download the files. This creates a buyer trap. You sometimes can't play the game to truly know if it's worth it or if you like it unless you buy it and download it to play it, and by downloading it, you have sacrificed all your rights to a refund. You are then stuck with this digital product, which you could lose access to at any time through a variety of different channels, and in the end, it may be gone forever. Forget about saving these games to reminisce with your kids in 10 or 15 years. They will probably be gone, literally just gone forever. This is not yet an all-encompassing phenomenon, but that's the direction it's headed. Pre-orders of physical discs now often simply have a piece of paper with a code on it. There is a deliberate trend towards the complete elimination of physical and analog game copies, and having everything route through a digital marketplace to a central server for which they simply sell the access. There are certain games where the online component is integral, but there are far more where it's not. There are a horde of games with more practically every day that provide a product which could easily be played offline, but because of cloud saves and various other shallow components, they are always online. As an example, I can't play Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Sekiro, a purely single-player game with no online cooperative play whatsoever. I can't play it at all without being connected to the internet. That makes no fucking sense. A lot of people ask me because of these opinions, well, what's the alternative then? And I believe the alternative is somewhere in the middle. When you buy a game, you should be buying a base level product, a version of the game that can be played offline at any time and is stored locally on your PC or in your console files. Obviously, for true MMOs, this wouldn't really be possible. There are certain games, very few however, that would be unable to provide this realistically, but most games would certainly have the capability. Then after that, you would have the online version. The same exact game, but you have an internet connection. The online version would require you to go through the standard accounts, just like we have now. It would require up-to-date patches and all the typical bells and whistles that we see at the moment, but it would not be the only version available. Players could choose to download patches and various files for the offline version if they wanted to. Developers would simply update the game as normal, and if you had a steady internet connection and wanted to keep the offline version of your game fully up to date with the latest patches, sure, that would be completely possible. But the ability to play an offline game whenever you want, for however long you want, would be preserved. The details of a system like this would be somewhat complex. Obviously, each game would need to be tied to a serial key and various anti-piracy measures would have to be taken, but I firmly believe it is possible to execute. There would need to be a calculated measure created to split the two versions in terms of game progress and save structure, but I can't imagine that to be impossible. In the end, even if it were to be difficult, it would be monumentally beneficial to consumers, because when you purchased a game, you would actually get the game, not just get temporary shifting access to that game, which could go up in smoke at any time and leave you with a jumble of inaccessible files that you purchased and can no longer use at all. Shipping a cardboard placeholder disc with a digital key code is not an acceptable practice. The shift from physical to digital is detrimental to the industry because of pre-release development trends and launch day practices, but it goes deeper than that. The transition from physical to digital on a fundamental level is stripping consumers of not only their rights, but their property. I still have a PlayStation 1 in the basement and a stack of discs. I can go back and play those games right now, but the same will not be true for most, if not all, of these modern day online only trash heaps. In the end, we are no longer buying games. We are buying temporary access to them through a spiderweb of accounts that can have unexplained and unexpected downtime, or result in total loss of purchase without any recourse possible whatsoever. In an ideal world, the physical benefits of purchase security would be blended with the digital ease of access. It is unlikely anything will come of this video, though. It's just the rantings of a bitter YouTuber who doesn't really like current industry trends, but hopefully some viewers end up thinking a bit more about the games industry and the games that they choose to buy, and subsequently the weaknesses that those games now have. Weaknesses that seem to be increasing in severity every single day. That's enough though. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. We have various gaming communities, merchandise, and some other stuff as well, but that's it. I'll cut it there and stop rambling. Thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.